Your first connection, your first country music connection, that first article there in Nashville, who was that first one?
Well, the very first one was actually, this the first story I wrote. I can't even remember. Now Bobby Bear is the first story in my book, and he was my first friend in the music business. But my first connections to tell these stories actually came from, when I was in the entertainment editor at the Banner, and my entertainment writers came in later than I would come in at 4:30 in the morning, but they worked nights, so they didn't come in till later in the morning. And so if an obituary, if somebody died overnight who was in the entertainment business, I would try to get it, because we had a paper that went out at 8:15 in the morning. Our first edition had to be out of the newsroom by 8:15 in the morning. So I was doing obituaries of entertainers. So my very first one, which is not in this book, the incident is in this book. It was like Floyd Kramer or Danny Davis, who were session players, also great entertainers. They died. I got the obit, and I didn't know who to call because I was relatively new in entertainment coverage. I was a news guy, but I called Chet Atkins. I looked in the phone book, and Chet Atkins still, in those days, everybody was still in the phone book. And so I called the number and I talked to Chet, and we began a long relationship. I talked to Chet to find out who to talk to about this person who'd passed, and also he gave me he gave me quotes, but he gave me other names and numbers of people to call, and that grew from there. I kept those names and numbers, and then anytime somebody would die in the entertainment business, I would call. Chet would be my first call. He was a wonderful man. People may not know Chet anymore, but he was a great guitar player, and also he was the boss at RCA here in Nashville, and he was a great studio executive, in addition to all of his other attributes, and also a very, very kind man. But I would always start with Chet, and then in fact, he told me finally, he said, one of these days, my wife and I were joking, Tim, one of these days you're going to call, and I won't answer because you're going to be calling about me, and I'll be deceased. And so they laughed about that. I do have his wife. After Chet died, he was a hand carver, a woodworker and wood carver by hobby, and he had a hand carved, a nameplate on his desk on Music Row, and his wife gave me that, which I have in my office, that he had carved. She said she knew I'd want something from Chet. And so he was my first real contact. Again, Stephanie, was the whole principle, though, went back to, and doing these stories and meeting these people as time went on, it was the same principle that we're all alike. We're more the same than different. And same hopes, fears, and ambitions, which drove me to my real people type columns, slice life columns. And it was also the way that I befriended musicians. It's nothing artificial. It's just my belief in that fact that they're at the base of everything else. They may be great stars, but they're human beings. And so I focused on the humanity and was able to befriend an awful lot of them over the years. And it was a great pleasure. It was an honor for me to know these people. So hope that answered that question.
It did. And in your book, Pilgrims, Pickers, and Honky Tonk Heroes, you have stories from George Jones, Earl Scruggs, Johnny Cash, Johnny and June Cash. Looking at it, it's almost a way to keep who they are and the music that they put out alive. Would you say that?
Yeah, it is. What I wanted to do, and I wanted to remind people of who these people were. Too often, they've been overlooked anymore because the music has changed dramatically. The city has changed too dramatically. These people were being forgotten, and so I wanted to make sure that they weren't forgotten. Most of them are gone now. And I had a list of 30-some people eventually that I was calling each of them at least once every 3 weeks, just to let them know that they still were important, that even though the They were not part of the state of the industry then. They weren't stars anymore. They were still very important to me and to other people. And that was the basis of all my writing about them. I got to go visit with them. And all of these people, they became friends. I would go visit with them, either maybe for a story, but then I would stay. I would keep their notes and keep everything about them, and plus my observations. And I was able to try to illustrate who these people were. Most of these folks were big stars. Most of these folks remain important. Most of them are deceased now, but they shouldn't be forgotten. No more than Nashville. What Nashville was should be forgotten. Nashville's a heck of a place now, but it was to me it was a better place back then.